A woman still in shock after her sister's tragic murder.
That is just so messed up that this is her story, you know?
A life taken too soon. A 23-year-old Brooklyn Park woman shot and killed over what her loved ones say was an act of pure jealousy and hate. They found McKeever lying on the floor with a bullet wound to her lower abdomen. The medical examiner says she died of multiple gunshot wounds.
She thought it was over. That is the part that matters most. Not simply that something had ended, but that Zaria McKeever believed it had ended. She had made her decision. She had closed a chapter of her life. And by the fall of 2022, she was doing what people do when they finally feel free of something that had been weighing on them. She was moving forward. She was 23 years old. She had a daughter she was raising. She had a sister she was inseparable from. She had a life in Brooklyn Park, Minnesota that was, by every visible measure, beginning to look exactly the way she had always hoped it would. What Zaria did not know, and what no one who loved her had yet understood, is that the person she had walked away from did not share her understanding of what was over and what was not. And in the weeks before November 8, 2022, while Zaria was building the next part of her life, prosecutors would later allege that someone else was already focused on something very different. On the night of November 7th, a friend was on the phone with Zaria when the line went quiet. The friend tried calling back. Zaria did not answer. By the time her older sister arrived at Eden Park Apartments in Brooklyn Park and saw the ambulances parked outside, the full scale of what prosecutors alleged had been happening behind Zaria's back was about to become known. The legal case that followed would take more than 3 years to fully close. This is Lethal Obsession, the channel that does not move on until the full story has been told. Subscribe right now and turn on your notifications so you never miss a case. Now let us get into it. Because before we follow what happened that night, before we look at the evidence, before we examine what investigators found and what a family had to fight for, you need to know who Zaria McKeever was. Not what happened to her, who she was. Zaria McKeever was 23 years old. She grew up in a military family. Her parents both served, which took the family from Georgia through Michigan and Alabama before they eventually settled in Minnesota. Zaria was 3 years old when they arrived. Minnesota was the place she grew up, the place she went to school, the place she built her life. She graduated from Champlain Park High School. She went on to earn a degree from PCI Academy in Plymouth. She was a makeup artist, someone who understood how to make people feel seen, feel beautiful, feel like the best version of themselves. Outside of work, she loved to cook. She loved to dance. She loved to draw. She made TikTok videos with her family, the kind of content that exists not for an audience but because life is worth documenting when you are living it well. She was the mother of a 1.5-year-old daughter, a little girl who was still at the age where the world is mostly made up of the people closest to her. Zaria was at the center of that world. Her mother was Maria Greer. Her stepfather was Paul Greer. And then there was Tiffany Epps, her older sister, her closest person, the one she had already designated as her babysitter before the pregnancy even happened. The two of them had gotten pregnant at almost exactly the same time. They gave birth to their children 1 day apart. Tiffany described what that was like in the simplest possible way. "We are literally together every single day." That was not a figure of speech. That was just the truth of what their relationship was. The family had settled in Brooklyn Park, a city that sits just northwest of Minneapolis. Zaria's home was at Eden Park Apartments. It was the place she was raising her daughter, the place that felt, by every external measure, like a home she had chosen for herself. There are photographs from this period of her life. She is smiling. Her daughter is with her. They are the kind of photographs a person takes not because something significant is happening, but because an ordinary moment feels worth keeping. Because life is good and you want a record of it. That is what Zaria McKeever looked like in the fall of 2022, 23 years old, raising a daughter she loved, making TikTok videos with her sister, building something that felt like it was only getting started. The events of November 8, 2022 did not begin that night. They began much earlier. And to understand what happened, and why, you first need to understand the relationship Zaria had decided was behind her, and what prosecutors alleged was already being set in motion the moment she tried to move on. His name was Eric Haynes. He was 23 years old. He lived in Brooklyn Park, the same city as Zaria. He was the father of her 1.5-year-old daughter, the little girl who was at the center of everything Zaria was building. That connection, a child they shared, meant that even after the relationship ended, Eric Haynes was not simply someone from Zaria's past. He remained present in the edges of her daily life, in the way that co-parents inevitably do. The relationship between Zaria McKeever and Eric Haynes had run its course. At some point in 2022 it ended. Zaria made a decision that the relationship was not working, and she moved forward. That is what the people who knew her best describe when they talk about that period of her life. Not dramatic conflict, not a single explosive event. A woman who had assessed her situation clearly and decided she deserved something better. Tiffany Epps described her sister's thinking in direct terms. She said Zaria was bettering her life, and that she had recognized Haynes as the downfall, that he was part of the reason things had been going the way they were going for her. That leaving was not a loss, it was a decision. By the fall of 2022, Zaria had begun seeing someone new. She was moving forward in the most literal sense, into a new relationship, into a new chapter, into a version of her life that did not have Eric Haynes at the center of it. What prosecutors would later allege is that Haynes did not see the breakup the same way Zaria did. After his arrest, Haynes gave a post-Miranda statement to police. In it, he admitted that he was mad, angry about the relationship ending, and specifically angry about Zaria's new boyfriend. That admission came from Haynes himself, in his own words, to law enforcement. He was not simply dealing with the ordinary difficulty of a relationship ending. He was, by his own account, specifically focused on the fact that someone else had come into Zaria's life. It was not the first time there had been conflict. Eric Haynes had a documented history of violating domestic no-contact orders against Zaria McKeever. That is not an allegation. That is a matter of confirmed record. The legal mechanisms that exist to create distance between people in exactly this kind of situation had been put in place, and they had been violated. In the weeks before November 8, 2022, Zaria began noticing things that unsettled her. She told her boyfriend that Haynes had been following her in his vehicle. She had also noticed someone she recognized, someone she understood to be connected to Haynes, appearing near her building at Eden Park Apartments. She was not imagining it. These observations were later confirmed in the charging documents that investigators built their case from. She said something to her boyfriend about it. She named what she was seeing, and then she kept going about her life. Because she had a daughter to raise and a future she was building, and because the alternative to going forward was not one she was willing to accept. What Zaria could not see, what no one around her yet understood, was the full scope of what prosecutors would later allege was already taking shape in the days before November 8th. She had ended a relationship. She had moved on. She believed that chapter was behind her. In the days that followed, prosecutors alleged that Haynes was not simply angry, he was making decisions, and he was not making them alone. In the days before November 8, 2022, something was happening that Zaria McKeever could not fully see. She had noticed pieces of it. The vehicle she recognized near her building, the familiar face she had spotted around Eden Park Apartments. She had named those things to her boyfriend, but what she was seeing were fragments, visible edges of something that was larger and more organized than anyone around her yet understood. Video footage from the Eden Park Apartments complex would later confirm what investigators suspected. A vehicle associated with Eric Haynes had appeared at the complex multiple times in the days before November 8th. Haynes was not simply angry. Prosecutors alleged he was watching, gathering information, preparing. He was not doing it alone. Two people allegedly helped him in the hours before November 8th. Ariana Haynes, Eric's own sister, 24 years old, from Brooklyn Center, and a man named Tavion James, 24 years old, from Brooklyn Park. Prosecutors alleged they assisted in the surveillance of Zaria in the period leading up to that night. Their involvement would eventually result in criminal charges of their own. During this same period, Haynes had purchased a firearm, a 9mm handgun. He did not buy it for protection. Prosecutors alleged he bought it with a specific purpose in mind, and that purpose had a target. He recruited two brothers, both teenagers, both from Brooklyn Park. The older was 17. The younger was 15. To Haynes, they were instruments. To the legal system that would later process this case, they were defendants. But at this point in the story, all the audience needs to know is what Haynes gave them and what he told them to do. He gave them the gun, and according to the criminal complaint that investigators built from witness statements and the brothers' own accounts to police, Haynes told them to deal with Zaria's new boyfriend. His instructions also addressed Zaria directly. If she caused any problems, they were to shoot her in the leg. Those were the instructions. Shoot her in the leg if she caused problems. On the night of November 7, 2022, Eric Haynes made his move. Under cover of darkness, in the early morning hours of November 8th, he drove the two brothers to Eden Park Apartments in Brooklyn Park. He parked. He armed them with the 9mm handgun he had purchased, and he sent them inside. He stayed in the vehicle and waited. Brooklyn Park police were dispatched to Eden Park Apartments at 2:34 in the morning on November 8, 2022, on a report of a home invasion in progress. What responding officers found when they arrived had already happened. The sequence of events inside that apartment had already reached its conclusion in a matter of minutes. The two teenagers kicked in the front door of Zaria's apartment. Inside, her boyfriend was in the bathroom. He heard the door come in. He heard Zaria's voice. She was arguing with someone in the front room. He ran to the bedroom, punched out the screen, and jumped from the second-story window to the ground. He found someone nearby and called 911. He was physically unharmed. Zaria was not in the bathroom. She was not in the bedroom. When the door came down, she was in the hallway, and she did not move out of the way. This is the moment the story changes, not because of what happened next, but because of what the audience did not yet know about one of the two teenagers standing in that hallway. His name was Fode Kamara. He was 15 years old. He was not a stranger to Zaria McKeever. He had eaten at her table. He had been welcomed on family outings. He had attended her daughter's first birthday party. This was not someone Haynes had hired from a distance and pointed at a woman he had never met. This was someone Zaria knew, someone she had trusted enough to let into her home, into her family's celebrations, into the ordinary moments of her life. When the door came in and she found herself facing the two teenagers, Zaria McKeever did what the people who loved her said she would do. She tried to talk. She told them to leave. She trusted that Fode, because she knew him, would listen to her. Her sister Tiffany Epps said it plainly in the words she later delivered at his sentencing. Zaria trusted him enough to think that she could talk to him and ask him to leave. She was wrong. In the account Fode Kamara gave to investigators after his arrest, he claimed that Zaria came at him with a knife as he and his brother tried to reach the bedroom. That is his account. What the charging documents and the prosecution established is that Zaria McKeever was shot 5 times, including at point-blank range. One of the brothers sustained a gunshot wound to the foot during the incident. Haynes drove them away from the scene. He transported them to a hospital, and at that hospital, both brothers were arrested. Once in police custody, they did not protect the man who had sent them. They told investigators what had happened and who had orchestrated it. Eric Haynes was implicated by the people he had recruited. Back at Eden Park Apartments, a friend of Zaria's had been on the phone with her when the line went silent. She could not reach her again. She called Tiffany Epps. Tiffany drove to Eden Park Apartments. She came around the corner and saw the lights, ambulances, police vehicles, officers outside the building. One of them walked toward her and told her that her sister had not made it. Zaria McKeever was 23 years old. Within hours of the shooting, Brooklyn Park police announced that 2 teenagers and an adult had been arrested. Charges followed 2 days later. The family believed that what came next would be straightforward. They believed the system would do what the system existed to do. What they did not yet know was that the battle for Zaria McKeever had only just begun.
22-year-old Eric Haynes of Brooklyn Park is charged with second-degree murder. According to the criminal complaint, Haynes had been threatening and harassing the victim for weeks leading up to her death.
In the immediate aftermath of November 8, 2022, the legal process moved quickly. Brooklyn Park police had made arrests within hours of the shooting. 2 teenagers and an adult were in custody before the sun came up. Charges followed 2 days later. Eric Haynes, the man investigators identified as the person who had purchased the weapon, recruited the teenagers, driven them to Eden Park Apartments, and waited in the vehicle while they went inside, was charged with second-degree murder. The 2 brothers faced charges as well. The McKeever family was in shock and in grief, but they were also watching the case move forward. They believed that what was coming next was accountability. They believed the system understood what had happened to Zaria and would respond accordingly. What they did not know yet was that the legal path ahead was about to take a turn nobody had warned them about. The case had initially been in the hands of Hennepin County Attorney Mike Freeman, whose office had been in the process of certifying the 2 teenage brothers as adults, a legal step that would have subjected them to adult criminal proceedings and adult sentencing. That process was underway, and then, in January 2023, a new Hennepin County attorney took office. Her name was Mary Moriarty, and one of the first decisions her office made in the McKeever case changed everything. Moriarty's office offered the 2 teenage brothers a plea deal. Under the terms of that deal, both brothers would serve approximately 2 years at the Red Wing Juvenile Correctional Facility in Minnesota. There would be no adult certification, no adult prison, 2 years for the killing of a 23-year-old woman and mother, and then release. The McKeever family learned about it the way families sometimes learn about decisions that affect them most directly. Without warning, without consultation, without the courtesy of being told before it was already in motion. Maria Greer, Zaria's mother, spoke publicly about what that moment felt like. Her words were not angry. They were exhausted and precise. She said,
When you're in a place where there's no truth, how can you get justice?
Paul Greer, Zaria's stepfather, described what the family was living through day to day. He said they had days where they did not feel hope, days where they did not feel like getting up. He said they had not really started the grieving process because they were having to fight every single day. That is not a description of mourning. That is a description of a family whose capacity to grieve had been consumed by a battle they had not chosen and had not expected. Tiffany Epps was the one who fought hardest and most directly. When she understood what was happening, that the plea deals the family considered wholly inadequate were being moved toward completion, she did not wait for someone else to act. She reached out to the governor's office. She reached out to the attorney general's office. She reached out to the lead detective on the case personally. And in that conversation with the detective, she discovered something critical. The plea deals were not yet finalized. There was still a window. And Tiffany Epps used every minute of it. Her position on the county attorney's office was stated without ambiguity. She said, "We just don't trust them, and we want it in the attorney general's hands." One of the teenage brothers, John Camara, who was 17 at the time of the crime, accepted Moriarty's original deal before the state intervened. He would serve 2 years at the Red Wing Juvenile Facility and remain on probation until his 21st birthday. Tiffany Epps described that outcome in 4 words. He skated away with no punishment. In March 2023, as the family's fight for the case to be reassigned was intensifying, 2 additional adults were charged. Ariana Haynes, Eric Haynes' own sister, 24 years old, from Brooklyn Center, and Tavion James, 24 years old, from Brooklyn Park, were each charged with aiding an offender as an accomplice after the fact. prosecutors alleged they had played a role in what happened in and around November 8th. What is notable, and confirmed in court records, is that Ariana Haynes and Tavion James married each other approximately 2 weeks after their charges were filed. Then came a detail that would only fully emerge as the investigation continued to develop. A woman named Valacia Parker, Eric Haynes' mother, had been living at the extended stay hotel in Brooklyn Center at the time of the murder. Police found the murder weapon at that location. Fode Kamara told investigators that Parker had been present when he entered the hotel room. He told her he had shot Zaria. She heard a conversation with Haynes about hiding the weapon. Rather than go to law enforcement, she stayed silent. Parker would be charged in 2024 with 4 felony counts of aiding an offender, the last defendant charged in connection with Zaria's death. But that came later. In the spring of 2023, the most consequential development was still ahead. On April 6, 2023, Tiffany Epps received a call from an unknown number. She answered. The voice on the other end was not a prosecutor or a detective or a victim's advocate. It was Governor Tim Walz. He was calling to tell her personally that he was reassigning the case, removing it from the Hennepin County Attorney's Office and placing it in the hands of Minnesota Attorney General Keith Ellison. Tiffany Epps relayed what happened in that moment to reporters afterward. Maria Greer described it. She said, "We were screaming at the top of our lungs when we heard. It was just a breath of fresh air. It was like we were able to breathe a little bit right now." What Governor Walz had done was extraordinarily rare. The transfer of a criminal case from a county attorney to the state attorney general without the county attorney's approval had not happened in Minnesota in nearly 30 years. Mary Moriarty, whose office was being bypassed, publicly called the move undemocratic. The debate about prosecutorial authority and juvenile justice that followed became a statewide conversation. But for the McKeever family, the politics were secondary. What mattered was that the case now belonged to an office that they believed would pursue justice in a way that matched what had actually been done to Zaria. Attorney General Keith Ellison's office moved deliberately. In July 2023, a grand jury returned an indictment against Eric Haynes that significantly upgraded the charges he faced. He was now indicted on 2 counts of first-degree murder, elevated from the second-degree murder charges that had been filed in the immediate aftermath of November 8th. The indictment reflected what prosecutors believed the evidence showed, that what Haynes had done was not a spontaneous act of violence, but a premeditated, deliberately planned killing. Fode Kamara, the younger of the 2 brothers, who had been 15 years old at the time of the crime, was eventually certified as an adult through negotiations under Attorney General Ellison's office. The original deal that would have spared him adult prosecution was no longer on the table. His case would be resolved in adult court. The McKeever family had spent months fighting for this outcome. They had made calls, sent emails, shown up, pushed back, refused to accept that the first answer was the final answer. Paul Greer had said they were having to fight every single day before they could even begin to grieve. Now, for the first time since November 8, 2022, something had shifted in the direction they had been pushing toward. By the spring of 2024, with all defendants now facing charges that the family believed reflected the severity of what had been done, the legal cases were finally moving toward resolution, and on the morning of April 1, 2024, 65 potential jurors gathered at Hennepin County District Court in preparation for the trial of Eric Haynes. Then, before a single juror was selected, something happened that nobody outside that courtroom had anticipated.
30 this morning, the teen who shot and killed Zaria McKeever nearly 2 years ago will learn his fate. Fode Kamara was 15 when Eric Haynes supplied him and his brother guns to confront his ex, Zaria McKeever, and her new boyfriend. Back in March, Kamara admitted in court to kicking down McKeever's door and shooting her. Audrey Russo is live at the Hennepin County Courthouse this morning
That's right. There was a lot of public outcry and back and forth over how much time Fode Kevin Kamara should serve in prison. But today is the day that the now 17-year-old will learn whether or not the next 10 years of his young life will be spent behind bars.
65 potential jurors had shown up to Hennepin County District Court on the morning of April 1st, 2024. They were there for the trial of Eric Haynes. The case had been built. The evidence had been organized. The family had fought for nearly a year and a half to reach this moment. And then, before the first juror was questioned, before a single name was called from the panel, Eric Haynes entered a guilty plea. He pleaded guilty to 1 count of first-degree intentional murder while committing a felony. The plea carried a mandatory sentence: life in prison with the possibility of parole after 30 years. There would be no trial, no cross-examination, no opportunity for the evidence to be tested in open court before a jury. Haynes had made the calculation that a guilty plea was preferable to what a trial would produce. 11 days later, on April 12, 2024, Eric Haynes appeared before Judge William Koch at Hennepin County District Court for his formal sentencing. He was sentenced to life in prison. Before the sentence was delivered, Haynes addressed the courtroom. His words were brief. He said, "I just want to say sorry to the family of Miss McKeever."
Haynes spoke for 4 seconds.
I just want to say sorry to the family of Miss McKeever.
Maria Greer, Zaria's mother, was in that courtroom. She had been in courtrooms, in waiting rooms, in press conferences, and on the phone with government officials for a year and a half. She had watched her family fight for every development that had brought them to this moment. And when she heard those words from the man who had orchestrated her daughter's death, she was not moved by them. She said, "I thought it was a coward way of doing things. You give me more than I'm sorry to the family. You give me more than those words. You owed us more than those words."
More than those words. You owed us more than those words. And we didn't get it.
On the same day that Haynes entered his guilty plea, April 1st, 2024, 2 other defendants also pleaded guilty. Ariana Haynes and Tavion James both admitted to aiding an offender as an accomplice after the fact. Their sentencing came on June 5, 2024. Ariana Haynes received 41 months in prison. Tavion James received 364 days in jail, with a stayed sentence of 42 months. Fode Kamara, the 15-year-old who had been inside Zaria's apartment that night, the young man who had eaten at her table and attended her daughter's birthday party, had entered his guilty plea 1 week earlier, on March 22, 2024. He pleaded guilty to aiding and abetting second-degree intentional murder. His sentencing was held on May 8, 2024, before Judge William Koch at Hennepin County District Court. He received 130 months in prison, 10 years. Tiffany Epps appeared at the sentencing via video. She spoke directly to the court about her niece, the daughter Zaria had left behind. Her words were measured, and they were devastating. She said she did not want her niece to forget who her mother was. She said the girl's mother's killer would be walking free when she entered middle school. That she would be traumatized all over again. That the family would be traumatized forever. Paul Greer, Zaria's stepfather, also addressed the court. He said he prayed for divine intervention for Kamara's heart to be changed, so that by the time he was released, no one else would have to endure what the McKeever family had endured. Kamara's attorney delivered a statement on his behalf. The words were, "Even though I did not want to hurt Zaria that night, I know I hurt her and your family in the worst way possible. She was a good person who did not deserve to be killed." That left one defendant. Valesha Parker, Eric Haynes' mother, had been charged in 2024. On March 25, 2026, she pleaded guilty to 1 count of aiding an offender after the fact. She admitted to lying to law enforcement and assisting her son after he had orchestrated the killing of Zaria McKeever. On May 1, 2026, she was sentenced to 364 days in jail, with a stayed prison sentence of 50 months for a period of 5 years. May 1, 2026, marked the completion of the final prosecution connected to Zaria's murder. Attorney General Keith Ellison confirmed it publicly. His statement was direct. He said, Nothing and no one can return Zaria McKeever to her family, her young daughter, and our community. I think about her and her loved ones often. We all continue to feel the loss of Zaria and will always remember her. The cases were closed. Every defendant had been sentenced. The legal record that Tiffany Epps and Maria Greer and Paul Greer had fought to build, through grief and without pause, was complete. But the courtrooms were empty now, and Tiffany Epps was not thinking about courtrooms. She was at home, with a little girl who sometimes calls her mommy by mistake. And that, not any verdict, not any sentence, is where this documentary ends. There is a photograph of Zaria McKeever that exists from the fall of 2022. She is smiling. Her daughter is with her. It is the kind of photograph a person takes on an ordinary day because the moment feels worth keeping, not because something significant is happening, just because life is good and you want a record of it. That is the image that stays, not the courtroom, not the charges, not the 3.5 years that followed. The image that stays is Zaria McKeever, 23 years old, smiling, her daughter beside her. Tiffany Epps talks about her sister the way people talk about someone who was genuinely good company, not as a tribute, the way you talk about someone whose absence creates a specific shape in the room, one that does not go away, and that you learn to navigate around. She said, "Just thinking about her smiling and her laughing makes me smile." What Tiffany Epps is doing now is raising Zaria's daughter. The little girl is approximately 3 years old as of 2026. The same age Zaria was when her family arrived in Minnesota. She is growing up in the care of her aunt, the woman her mother had always intended to be her babysitter, now filling a role that neither of them was supposed to need. Tiffany has spoken about the moments when her niece looks at her and calls her mommy by mistake, about correcting her gently, about not wanting a child to forget the face of the mother she will grow up without. She said, "I do not want her to forget who her mom is." Tiffany also said this, not to the courtroom, not to the defendants, but to anyone watching who might recognize something in this story. She said, "If you see signs, if you notice things, if you get vibes about people, start calling police and making reports, and protect yourself by any means, because you never know what could happen." Attorney General Keith Ellison said of Zaria, "She was a loving mother, wonderful daughter, awesome sister, and loyal friend." She was 23 years old. She had a daughter she loved and a sister she was inseparable from, and a life that was moving in exactly the direction she had chosen for it. She thought it was over. She was right that something needed to end. She was building the life that came after it. Her name was Zaria McKeever. Say it correctly. If this documentary gave you the complete, verified story of Zaria McKeever that you could not find told this fully anywhere else, that is exactly what Lethal Obsession is built to do. Every case on this channel is researched to this standard. Every person at the center of these stories is treated with this level of accuracy and respect. Subscribe right now and turn on your notifications. Share this documentary with someone who needs to hear it, because what happened to Zaria McKeever is not unique to Brooklyn Park, and it is not unique to 2022. This pattern exists everywhere, and the more people who understand what it looks like, the better the chance that the next story ends differently.